And Yoel the prophet said, "Our youth shall see visions." When first starting to write the speech, I had a problem. I didn't know what to write about. I couldn't envision anything. No, but seriously, my mind was blank and my thoughts were murky. I tried to picture what my speech would be about, but it was to no avail. To me, the topic seemed ambiguous. Our youth shall see visions. I didn't know what these visions were. Were they spiritual or technological or philosophic or psychedelic? And on what grounds were they based, and who did they affect? I had to sit down in a dark room, put on headphones, stare into the vivid white light of my computer monitor, and blast the Doors music before an idea started to fabricate in my mind. I saw Martin Luther King Jr. thunderously roaring, "I have a dream," in front of hundreds of thousands of people, as the electricity of his voice and the magnitude of his vision made them sway. I thought of Friedrich Nietzsche the moment before his inky pen touched a fresh sheet of paper as he produced the parable of the madman. I tried imagining the thoughts that collected in his mind before funneling into specific words that he placed permanently into the minds of philosophers everywhere, ever after. My mind then traversed across the great plains of history and rewinded continually until I became conscious of the man himself, Moses, standing at the top of Mount Nebo, uttering the Shema, seeing the great nation of Jewish people that stood before him for the final time, and in the distance, the promised land, Israel, glittering in the sunlight. I perceived at this moment the meeting that existed between past and future, and the sensation that must have consumed Moses, the great leader of the Jewish people, as he looked on at what he'd spent 40 years in the desert wandering for, as he looked below at a people, once slaves, now emancipated, who would finally have their dream fulfilled, and as he prepared to say goodbye for the final time, but to leave them eternally with the blessing of his leadership and the promise of his vision. It was at this point that a new thought entered into my mind, one more up-to-date, if you will. Yom Kippur, Beth Tzedec, 2012. Stomach grumbling, feet aching, a mind possessed by a longing to indulge in a nice succulent burger, I thought of myself standing in the pews as the rabbi came to the pulpit and told the Kohanim to prepare for duchening. I exited from the sanctuary and made nice small talk with the other Kohanim waiting outside. But you could tell that all of us were on the verge of breaking. We were one moment away from snapping out and shouting, "Give me food," as we ravenously waited to get the prayer underway. But then, as the levies came out and they started washing my hands, a new thought came into my mind and replaced my hunger. It was one of astonishment, sheer amazement at the fact that there I was, partaking in a ritual thousands of years old that Jewish men had performed for centuries, and one that still held the same sacred value to the day that it did hundreds of years ago, a tradition that I was perpetuating simply by being there. Suddenly food stopped mattering as I was overwhelmed by a sense of spiritual purpose. In line with other washed-up Kohanim, I walked, shoes off, into the rabbi's study. Small and non-ornate, with pink walls on all sides and the light from the sanctuary piercing through the door at the end gently. A mystical breeze passed through the small space and gave me goosebumps. The rabbi came in and spoke softly, yet with true passion resonating behind every word. "It hasn't been an easy year for the Jewish community, both locally and internationally," he said. He spoke of the strife experienced by Jews everywhere. "They need your prayers now more than ever. Stop and allow yourself to become a vessel for God's blessing, and to channel energy through you to the people of the community." And at that moment, all was still and all was quiet, as the rabbi's words reverberated off of every surface in the hallowed room, and were felt by everyone standing within it. The breeze once again came through and caressed my face, and with it came a vision of hardships experienced and anguish endured, a vision of love lost and happiness drained. And then this vision morphed into one of hope. I could feel myself opening up and bursting with a true sense of meaning. And through this vision that the rabbi had bestowed upon me, I was now no longer Eton, the 5'11" Toronto resident who was struggling with finding my place, and existentialist cries and poetry and girls, the usual. But I was now an individual linked to some divine power with a certain holy job to do. And when I stepped out onto the bima, I allowed myself to be engulfed in a certain white light, and conduct a vision of prosperity to shed onto the community. And I know it all sounds so pretentious now, but at that moment it was real. And when I stepped off the bima and back into the rabbi's study, it no longer contained a transcendent undercurrent, but became just a room, and the Kohanim I was with transformed back from ancient servants of God to just regular, hungry people. This anecdote leads me to inquire what a vision really is, and why Yoel puts particular emphasis on the youth as the couriers of this vision. So, seeking the most pragmatic means of defining what a vision is at its core, I look to the infallible Oxford English Dictionary. Literally speaking, the English definition of a vision is an experience of seeing someone or something in a dream or trance or as a supernatural apparition. But to me, that didn't suffice. So I did the next most logical thing and turned to my philosophy teacher, who in turn told me to go over the works of acclaimed Jewish philosopher Martin Buber, who declared that a human being confronts a form that wants to become a work through him, not a figment of his soul, but something that appears to the soul and demands the soul's creative power. What is required is a deed that a man does with his whole being. And you could say that this definition excited me so much that I continued the trend and turned to the next illustrious Jewish philosopher, Viktor E. Frankl, who said that everyone has his own specific vocation or mission in life. Everyone must carry out a concrete assignment that demands fulfillment. Therein he cannot be replaced, nor can his life be repeated. Thus, everyone's task is unique, as is his specific opportunity to implement it. And I tried relating this to my own interpretation of what a vision truly is to me, which, I apologize in advance, is extremely ostentatious and verbose, but nonetheless I could only put to words through saying is the psychological manifestation of an intrinsic spiritual longing in a person to see something appear as or become real. And connecting the dots, the pulp of my argument began to materialize. What sets us human beings apart from any other creatures on this earth is our ability to discern the magnificence of life and to dream to always improve it. It is exactly this that allows us to leave our mark on the world and bring about change and progress, and exactly this that distinguishes us as humans. Now, regarding why Yoel calls on the youth in particular took some more investigation, and I turned to the most helpless facet of all life, my father, to find the answer to this. As my dad said, look at your inherent ability to use a Mac computer effortlessly, while I sit here and struggle. And in that sentence was the answer. Children are born into this world as keys to the future. They enter the world without being able to change anything, but only to observe. And they do observe. They observe all the problems that face society. They observe all the mechanisms that their parents' generation strove to even create. And they absorb all the progress of the last 100 years without effort, and sometimes even without knowing what it is that they are seeing. But what really endows upon the youth such promise is the ability to ask the ultimate questions that are far too often expunged by day-to-day life and its worries. The youth have the opportunity implanted within them to make the world of tomorrow the world they want it to be. And with enough tender love and care, these seeds of change can grow into visions that, in turn, with passion and willpower, can blossom into realities. As Helen Keller said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. Alas, I have my own vision, a vision of a perfect utopic world that, well, I'd really love to get into right now, but see, I'm probably way over my time. I have a history essay due Tuesday and a girl I'd really love to go meet to discuss poetry with at Starbucks, so, Joel, I'm gonna have to take a rain check. Thank you.